When it's all said and done, the only thing that matters is that we fear God and keep his commandments. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. That's the whole enchilada. That's all there really is to it. All there really is to this walk when you get down to the brass tacks. And that's why 99% of Christian content is complete garbage. I remember watching a YouTube video from a popular Christian YouTube channel not long after becoming a Christian. And I remember after watching that video thinking to myself, that didn't really do anything for me. Maybe there was an entertaining opinion, some interesting information. But after watching that video, did I feel any more equipped to be more like Jesus, more like Moses, more like Abraham, King David? No. And that's most of the content that makes up Christian YouTube. However, there are some kinds of Christian content that are good and profitable. And I'm going to list the various kinds and categories going from worst to best. And my hope is that by watching this video, Christians will be able to better discern whether or not the kinds of videos they are watching are profitable or detrimental to the Christian walk. The first and worst category, which is also the most popular form of Christian content, is what I like to call Christian flavored entertainment. It's little to no more profitable or edifying than worldly entertainment. In fact, a lot of the times, the subject of these videos are about worldly things and people, celebrities, drama, politics, current events, drama between Christian YouTubers. The only difference between these videos and the kind of videos from guys like Destiny or Sneeko or Abba and Preach is that the videos are censored and the guy making the video is probably going to say the word Jesus and Christian a few times, maybe even drop a Bible verse, at some point. This is the most fleshly, the most popular, the least edifying, and the least profitable of all the Christian content on YouTube. Sometimes it even goes so far as to become wicked, because in the name of reacting to some worldly thing so that you can offer a Christian perspective, you end up putting some vile or vulgar image before the eyes of the brethren, which contradicts Psalm 101 verse 3, which says, "I will set nothing wicked before my eyes. I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not cling to me." And this kind of content has surely caused people to stumble. And look, I used to be one of these kinds of Christian creators. Oh, Lil Nas X is being gay again, mocking Jesus. Let's talk about that. It's a joke, really. It's not real ministry. I think God allowed me to do it for a short time because sanctification is a process. And, I was a brand new Christian going from being a popular worldly YouTuber, with a bunch of subscribers. And this was my way of transitioning, trying to go in a more righteous direction. But after a little over a year of being a Christian, I've had to grow out of that kind of content. Yeah, no, it's a joke, for real. You'd get far more out of reading Matthew chapter 5 through 7, which would only take you about 15, 20, 25 minutes than you would from watching 100 hours of that kind of content. Also, I think that if you're being exposed to worldly things through this supposed Christian content, it's just as bad for you spiritually as if you were watching that worldly content. I think it's a way for the evil in your flesh to trick you into watching worldly content by telling you that it's coming through a Christian filter. It's the worst kind of Christian content, truly. Bottom tier. One tier up from that would be the kind of videos that I like to call fun facts about Christianity. This content is also, for the most part, completely useless. It's just a distraction. It offers no actionable information. It in no way will make you a better Christian or help you to resist Satan overcome sin, be more loving to your fellow man. It's literally just a way to kill time, you know, and learn a bunch of useless Jeopardy-like information about Christian related things. That said, you know, look, sometimes you want to kill some time, right? Sometimes you want to distract yourself and just watch something entertaining, kick up your feet, relax. And that's exactly what this kind of content is good for, right? It's not wicked, and it's about Christian related things. So at least in some way it's keeping your mind on Christian related things, and that's a positive, right? I will say though, there is still something spiritually negative about this kind of content as well. And I think it's that the viewer can be fooled into believing that they are actually practicing Christianity by consuming content about Christian related things. See, being a Christian is not about being interested in Christian things. It's about doing the right thing, practicing righteousness, not sinning willfully, carrying out the commands of Jesus, resisting Satan. It's like the guy who spends all his time watching basketball and basketball commentary videos, but then when he finally gets on the court, every shot is an air ball, he's out of breath, and he's tripping over his own 2 feet. The next tier up from that would be videos about theological concepts and ideas. We're talking teachings, discussions, and debates about things like the Trinity, Calvinism, Arminianism, baptism, sacraments, free will, the atonement, grace, works, the law, and everything like that. Now, this kind of information is important and can actually be very useful, especially for people like me who really like to understand how things work. I like taking things apart, putting them back together. And these concepts are the moving parts that make up the structure of this religion that we call Christianity. So the more you understand these concepts and why they are true and not true, the better you can understand how Christianity works from a more conceptual level. Now, this kind of knowledge is useful because by understanding how Christianity works, you can make better sense of the world around you, the nature of God, and why it makes sense to be a Christian. For instance, right, let's say you're a Calvinist, you're Reformed. The way you understand God or God's nature is very different from the way that you would understand it as an Arminian. Calvinists, for instance, believe that God controls and determines everything that happens, and he is working all things for the good of those who love him as he sees fit. So when a man commits an evil act and murders a child, for instance, the Calvinists will say, well, God allowed that to happen. And even though it was a wicked thing, it was his will, and he allowed it to happen for the sake of accomplishing a greater purpose that is beyond our understanding. An Arminian, on the other hand, would have to say that God could have stopped the murder, but chose not to, as to respect that criminal's free will, and so just stood by and watched an innocent child get murdered for no real reason. It didn't do anything to accomplish his will or his greater plans, but simply just because he didn't feel like it, he didn't intervene. You can probably tell I'm being a little facetious, right? The Arminian position is ridiculous to me because we see God hardening hearts and stopping people from sinning in the Bible. So there is no rule that God can't intervene whenever he wants. So if he doesn't, the Arminian must think it's because he simply didn't feel like it. But with that said, I think I also just revealed the negative side of this kind of knowledge. As Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 18 also says, for in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases in knowledge increases in sorrow. Some of the most miserable people in Christian culture are the people who spend all their time arguing and bickering and debating people over these kinds of concepts, which in all reality won't make much of a difference in regards to how many treasures you store up in heaven or help you to follow the instructions of Jesus. Because when Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, for instance, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. It doesn't matter if you're a Calvinist or an Arminian. All that matters is that you pray for your enemy. And when Jesus says also in Matthew chapter 6, but if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. It won't matter whether you're a Trinitarian, oneness, or anything in between. If you have unforgiveness in your heart, you will be tossed into the lake of fire. As long as you believe that Jesus is the Christ, you have been born of God. And the evidence that you have truly been born of God is that you practice righteousness. So that's all that really matters. So to close this point, yes, I would say this kind of content is useful and profitable, but only to the degree that it helps you to better obey God, follow Christ, and serve him in faith. Also, you should be wary. This kind of content also makes you susceptible to studying Christianity instead of practicing Christianity. So please keep that in mind as well. Finally, we have the most profitable and highest quality type of spiritual content on Christian YouTube, right? And that is the content which directly helps you to walk in righteousness and to grow in spiritual power. This is by far the least popular type of content in the Christian space, because only people who are truly dedicated to the faith are seeking out this kind of content. They want to know how to stop sinning willfully. They want to know how to better overcome temptations. They want to know how they can better please God, how to draw closer to him, how to operate within the spiritual gifts. They want to know how to get unclean spirits out of their flesh, how to be a godly man, husband, father, employee, employer, friend, brother. And the videos that tell you how to do these things are by far the best kinds of videos to watch on YouTube, because you walk away from every video with something to do, some instruction that you can act upon that will immediately have a positive impact on your life spiritually. You know, this kind of content will usually come in the form of a sermon, but can also come in the form of a typical, edited, dedicated video. The main thing that I think you should ask is this man, this preacher, this content giving me some kind of information that will guide me or encourage me to be more righteous, to be a better person, to be a better Christian? Now, there's one more category of content, and let's call this one an honorable mention. It's a bit of a wild card, and that would be content about prophecies and conspiracies and just anything obscure, right? We're talking about videos that cover the end of days, flat earth, the Nephilim, aliens, the 9/11, MK Ultra, alternate history timelines, ancient world technologies, chemtrails, the spirit realm, mud flood, Tartaria, the millennial kingdom of Christ, and all videos like this. And this kind of content is interesting, right? There are people who consume this content and wake up spiritually and come to believe in God and Jesus for the first time. I myself have been encouraged spiritually by learning about some of these things, because it helps me to see ways in which the world isn't what it often professes to be. And it can help a person to believe more in the supernatural, thus strengthening their faith and causing them to feel more confident about trusting in the power and the promises of God. That said, this kind of content is a double-edged sword. Much of it is speculation. A good amount of it might be nonsense. And even for the stuff that is true, and there are some pretty wild conspiracies that I think could be true, even for that stuff, there comes a point where obsessing over these ideas becomes a distraction from focusing on righteousness and the person of Jesus Christ. And so this kind of content, I would say, ranges from completely unprofitable to very profitable, depending on the topic and where you are spiritually. I believe it's fine to be consumed in moderation and should always be taken with a humble spirit and a grain of salt. Because as Paul says in 1 Corinthians, if anyone thinks they know anything, he knows nothing yet as he ought to know it. With that, I hope this video has blessed you. And I'm interested to see your opinions in the comment section. If you feel as if I left out any other kinds of Christian content, any other categories, go ahead and drop it down below. I love to see what y'all have to say. May God bless you and keep you until the next time. Peace.
Yeah. I only tell you the truth. I ain't got nothing to lose. Yeah. I gave my life to God and I'm still ballin'.